relationship in his country, a man was superior to a female, and because he was superior to a female, if he chose to have sex with her and she chose not, even if they're married, and she chose not to have sex with him, and he forced her, he was justified because he was the male and she was the female. But now this has changed too, because now you cannot force someone to have sex with you that is married, and that is there is a such thing as marital rape, and especially when it leads to legally separating or filing for divorce, spousal abuse, domestic violence, eliminations of all exceptions to the prosecution. The trend in the United States is toward the elimination of all exceptions to the prosecution of these crimes. In the 90s, many studies show that women are far more likely to be victims of violence at the hand of husband or boyfriend than by a stranger, which is where domestic violence comes into play. Non-forcible sex offenses. Non-forcible sex offenses include sexual conduct with individuals that the law assumes are not capable of giving consent to sexual acts. There is a lack of consent by the victim, may be the matter of law. So they're saying that if you have a non-forcible sex offense, meaning that you've had sex with someone who is underage, physically helpless, mentally incompetent victims are incapable of giving consent to sexual acts and will not consider consent as a valid defense to the crime. Consenting to sexual acts varies by state, and it is by age. Termed statutory rape, okay, underage individuals are considered as serious as forcible sex acts, similar to rape. It does not matter the perp's reason to believe that the victim was of age consent because of the matter of fact, there's no defense in the statutory rape case. So what they're saying is that even though there were these numerous people who I was speaking of who've been claimed to be sex offenders, who may be 1, 2, or 3 being the lowest, these people may have engaged with sexual intercourse, were charged with the fact of sexual intercourse, have done their time, paid their fines, whatever in regards to this, but are still validated as a sexual offender on the books. Now, what they have is a time frame. You're not a sex offender forever. I believe you're a sex offender for a time frame to determine whether or not you are a recidivist sex offender, and if your downgrading can change. Usually they put sex offenders in therapy groups, and in these therapy groups they talk with other people who are sex offenders who may be higher on the hierarchy or lower, and they can get some consensus about what it is they need to do to change. Some gentlemen speak about how they meet a young girl who lifts up her skirt and plays with her vagina and says to the man, what do you want to do with me? He goes, and man being, intoxicated, inebriated, whatever, engages in intercourse with her. Then afterwards, she cries rape, she wants money, and then, she says that this guy is 30 and I'm only 15 or 16. And then he's stuck with an issue, with this person. And so what they try to do is educate men and women to be more adherents to checking IDs, getting information about someone before they engage in sexual contact. And this ties in with the HIV status. I mean, like when you have one night stands, you have people who go out and just have sex with any given person on any given day, without knowing anything about this person. You're really putting yourself at risk because you're not actually knowing what type of person this is, what this person wants to do to you. You're putting your life in jeopardy, and you're putting your safety and your health at risk by doing this. Incest is another sex-related offense, and sexual intercourse with a close relative. Close relatives that the law forbids one from marrying. Prostitution is another offense in and of itself, intermingled with sex offenses such as statutory rape or adultery, where the prostitute or the john is underage or married to someone else, which is what we spoke about. Child sexual abuse, sex offenses, presents many difficult issues to courts and legislators, and it is considered to be the most horrific, the child sexual assault. For example, the case of prostitution is argued that neither the prostitute nor the customer is a victim because they each willingly enter into the agreement. However, some argue that society itself is the victim of such crimes. So some people are saying that because there are people who predominantly think that because they have beautiful bodies and are well endowed, with large breasts and buttocks and genitals and penises and things like that, that because people have these characteristics, that people want these things, and because people want these things, they're willing to pay for it, you know, and they feel that that is in fact a degradation to society because, and it is true to a certain extent, because there is so much more to a person than how they physically present themselves and their physical attributes. You know, I have a really good saying, it's not the size of the boat, it's the motion of the ocean. So it's not how big the boat is, it's how well the boat can hit the waves and go through the sea. Society's responsibility is to protect individuals from themselves as the rationale accepted for non-forcible sex offenders involving minors. So these are non-forcible sex offenses. They do speak of HIV and AIDS. And in '90, Congress passed the Ryan White Comprehensive AIDS Resource Emergency Act, which states to prosecute people who are knowingly or intentionally expose others to the virus through sexual contact, blood or tissue donations, or sharing of hypodermic needles. States must do so in order to be eligible for grant money. Now, this is true. In addition to what states must do to enforce the HIV transmission laws, the states must also enforce relative ways that the states can not have these type of activities going on. Traditional criminal statutes prosecute such offenders by charging them with attempted murder or assault. State versus Haynes, 545, any second edition, 834. The defendant was convicted of attempted murder for biting, scratching, spitting, and throwing blood on others with the intent to infect them with his HIV condition. Now, in Zuli versus State, the court upheld the conviction of aggravated sexual assault and transmission of HIV, where the defendant, who knew that he was HIV positive, engaged in sodomy with a 15-year-old boy who 2 years later tested positive for HIV. So they're saying that specifically, like other areas of law, the offense law, sex offense law has been affected by the health concern